Friends, again, thank you for being with us. This insane war is still raging, and many innocent people have been killed and injured at all fronts of the conflict, including children, women, elderly, in Iran, in Lebanon, in Israel, in the Gulf states, in Iraq, in the United States, not to mention the people of Gaza, the West Bank, and the Golan Heights, and in many other places. Most of us here are either Muslims or Jews, probably mostly Christian, or non-religious. Sabil Jerusalem has invited 3 young women who belong to one of the 3 religious faith traditions. They will speak about their response to this terrible war as living members of the human family. And in a few minutes, Omar, the director of Sabil, will be introducing them. But before Omar does that, allow me, friends, to mention an important truth that our 3 religious faiths inspire us. As Muslims, Jews, and Christians, we believe in one God, who is a God of mercy, love, truth, and justice. And our faith teaches us that we must give to this God our praise, adoration, and worship. This is the first dimension of our religious faith. This is the first great commandment. The second dimension of our faith has to do with our relationship with our neighbor, our fellow human beings. It is very significant to keep these 2 dimensions connected. Our vertical dimension with God and the horizontal relationship with our fellow brothers and sisters all over the world. If we truly love God, we must love our neighbor. We must truly love our fellow human being. If we say we love God but turn against our fellow human being, we fall short, we sin, we miss the mark. We sin against God and we sin against our neighbor. This is the great commandment also. This is why we look at this war as insane. The negotiations between Iran and the United States were going well. But the love of war, greed, vengefulness, humiliating the enemy, the hubris, and many other emotions took hold of our political leaders, and they chose war. So we come to pray for all who have been tragically affected by the war, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And we ask God to have mercy on them and on us. At the same time, we pray that the Spirit of God would touch, inspire, and move and challenge the minds, heart, and consciousness of all our political leaders to stop the war, to stop the warmongering, madness, to turn to seek justice, peace, harmony, and reconciliation. I hope we can remember this and continue to pray for all our brothers and sisters, innocent people who have been affected by this insane war. At this time, I'd like for Omar to please introduce our guests.
Thank you, Reverend Naeem. I would like to introduce our first speaker, my friend, my sister, Tamara. Tamara is a Muslim Palestinian American who was born in Jerusalem. Tamara has worked in the philanthropic sector for over 10 years and is keen to advocate for justice and freedom for Palestinians. Tamara is a wonderful spirit, a beautiful spirit, and a blessing to the movement. My good friend Tamara.
There you go. Thank you, Omar. Thank you so much. Kind words. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And peace and blessings be with everyone here on this call. Thank you for gathering here today. People of different faiths, traditions, and communities united by a shared longing for peace and for justice. In moments like this, when the world feels heavy with grief, when images of suffering reach us daily, it would be easy to turn away, to close our eyes, to silence our conscience. But today, we do the opposite. In Islam, justice is not optional. It is a sacred obligation. The Quran reminds us, O believers, stand firm for justice as witnesses for Allah, even if it is against yourselves, your parents, or your close relatives. Today we gather in prayer, in conscience, and in solidarity. I speak to you as a Muslim woman, a Palestinian American, and as someone who was born in Al-Quds, Jerusalem, a sacred city to billions of people across all faiths. Al-Quds is not simply a place on the map. It is a place where heaven and earth meet in the hearts of believers. For Muslims, Jerusalem is home to Al-Aqsa Mosque, the second holiest site in Islam, a place where generations of worshippers have gathered in prayer, especially during the holy month of Ramadan. Yet this Ramadan, it's different. Many Palestinians have faced a painful reality. Access to Al-Aqsa Mosque, a sacred place of worship, has been restricted, and many who long to pray there during the holiest month of the holiest nights of the year have been prevented to do so. For Muslims, Ramadan is a time of reflection, humility, fasting, and closeness to God. In a time when hearts soften, when communities gather in prayer, and when believers turn deeply towards the divine. To be separated from a sacred place of worship during such a holy time is not just a political reality. It is a spiritual wound. Across Palestine, across Gaza, across Lebanon, across Iran, and beyond, countless people are experiencing unimaginable grief, loss, and hardship during this time. Homes destroyed, families displaced, children growing up under the sound of bombs instead of the sounds of classrooms and playgrounds. Many of us watching from afar struggle even to comprehend the level of suffering that they're feeling. What does it mean to live without safety? What does it mean for a parent to not know if they can feed their child today? What does it mean to look around and not have family around because they were all murdered? What does it mean to lose everything overnight? These are hardships that most of us cannot fathom. And yet, in our faith traditions, we are reminded what to do in moments like this. In Islam, we're reminded that hardship is part of the human journey, but it's never the final chapter. The Quran tells us, "Inna ba'd al-usri yusra, inna ba'd al-usri yusra." For indeed, with hardship comes ease. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. God repeats this promise twice, not to deny our suffering, but to remind believers that hardship does not last forever. Oppression does not last forever. Injustice does not write the final ending. Throughout history, even the prophets of God endured moments when the world around them seemed to say that hope was impossible. When Prophet Musa alayhi salam, stood before the sea with the Pharaoh's army behind him, everything in his physical reality seemed to say escape was impossible. Yet God, the Almighty God, split the sea. When Prophet Joseph alayhi salam, was betrayed by his brothers as a child, thrown into a well, sold into slavery, everything in his reality suggested his life was over. Yet Allah has raised him to become a minister in Egypt. When the Prophet Ibrahim, was thrown into the fire, and the world around him expected destruction, death, harm, yet God commanded the fire to become cool and safe, and he wasn't harmed. And even in the tyranny of the most powerful oppressor of the time, Fir'aun, the Pharaoh, it ultimately fell and ended. These are not just stories. These are history and reminders of Allah's mercy and his accountability to justice. And tonight, in the final and most sacred days of Ramadan, the last 10 nights in which Muslims around the world turn to Allah with their deepest prayers, in these nights, we're reminded of something powerful. The same Allah and the same God that believers turn to in prayer today is the same one who split the sea for Moses, is the same God who raised Yusuf from abandonment and slavery to honor, is the same God who made the fire cool for Ibrahim and brought the end of the tyranny of Pharaoh, the creator of the universe, the Adil, the utterly just. This is the God we turn to. This is the God we ask. The one thing that every one of those believers had in common was this: unwavering faith. Everything around them, their reality, their circumstances, their fear screamed that the situation was hopeless, that it was over, that there was no way forward. But they refused to let their faith be dictated by what their eyes can see. Instead, they trusted the one who created reality itself. And this is the message for us today: that even when the world feels heavy and when injustice feels overwhelming, even when the suffering is unbearable, faith reminds us that the creator of the universe is greater than the circumstances we see in front of our eyes, and that justice ultimately belongs to God. Our responsibility as people of faith, Muslims, Christians, Jewish, and others, is to stand together in conscience, to refuse to normalize injustice, to defend the dignity of human life everywhere. And so I end with this prayer. O Allah, you are the peace, and from you comes peace. Bring relief to those who suffer. Comfort those who mourn. Protect the innocent. Allow the people of Palestine to pray freely in their sacred places. Bring justice where there is oppression, and strengthen the hearts of those who refuse to lose hope. And remind us that in these final nights of Ramadan, that your promise remains, that after hardship comes ease. Inna ba'd al-usri yusra. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, Tamara. It is very weird to be in Jerusalem during Ramadan, during Lent, coming closer to Pesach, where the roads are closed, places of worship are empty. In the same week that I met Tamara, I also met another amazing, beautiful person with a great spirit, with a great smile, Sarah Moon, who is an ordained priestess, a Jewish educator and community organizer based in Devon, England. She's the co-founder of Miknaf Haaretz, which cultivates radical diasporous Jewish community in the UK through deep reconnection with ancestral Jewish earth-based wisdom, and has spent the last 15 years engaged in Palestinian solidarity work. Our friend, my sister, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Omar and Sabeel, and to all of you. It is so wonderful to be with you all, so many of you, in this difficult time. It gives me some strength to see so many people here in this prayerful space for peace in this time. And I was really honored to be on the delegation with Tamara in the summer of 2024. And I wanted to mention that at the beginning of my words, because that delegation is still with me. The prayers that we prayed together in some of the most challenging situations, meeting Palestinians from different parts of the West Bank and Jerusalem who were facing so much cruelty and oppression, and to be together, to pray together, to sing together, and to find friendship and solidarity even in such bleak moments of injustice. It showed me the power of solidarity, and especially bringing our faith traditions and the wisdom of our faith traditions and the wisdom of the resilience and resource we can find from the ancients and ancient wisdom of our traditions. And I've really learned that through Sabeel. So I carry that with me, and that feels such an important balm for these times that we come together in prayer and solidarity. I am horrified in this time as a Jewish person who Israel often speaks on behalf of and proclaims to act in the name of my safety. I want to say from the outset that they do not speak for me. They do not speak in my name. They do not act for the safety of the Jewish people. In fact, the very opposite. I think all of us here know that to be true, and know and believe and are working towards a vastly different future where we all can be safe and free and know justice so deeply in our bones and our bodies and our lands, and we're not pitted against each other, that we know that our safety and solidarity is totally entwined. And I also want to note at the beginning that I was especially horrified as a Jewish person to hear the remarks of the Israeli Prime Minister when he declared the war on Iran recently, and brought to mind the Purim story, the story of Esther that we recently celebrated, and this very cynical co-opting of ancestral Jewish wisdom for his own political ends. And that feels all the more important that we come together and stand firm in our faith stories and traditions that we know speak the call of justice and peace. And however manipulative governments and warmongers want to manipulate those stories for their own ends, we will not tolerate that. We will not accept that, and we will raise them up to be the voices of justice and peace that we need to see in this world. And I want to focus instead on uplifting the voices of peace and justice in the Jewish tradition, of which there is so much, and I'm so grateful for that. I was on the delegation with Sabeel in 2024, but I spent a lot of time in Palestine before that. And you know, in my first encounters in Palestine and doing solidarity activism in the West Bank, I was broken and devastated and horrified to see what was being done in my name. And I very almost felt that I had to turn away from Judaism, and I couldn't bear to be associated with the violence that I witnessed. And I did take some time to really reflect on how I could still participate, still be part of this tradition and thank God I also had experiences and encounters and held on to a knowing that Judaism was a lot more than that. And I trusted that and eventually met lots of incredible, inspiring Jewish people, Jewish groups who were deeply grounded in their Judaism and offering a way of being in solidarity with Palestinians and for justice for all peoples that was grounded in their Jewish values. And thank God I found a way home into Judaism and could stand firm in my Judaism alongside my Palestine solidarity work. And I know that has made both of those paths all the more stronger. And I wanted to share a little bit that the summer after I was in Palestine with Sabeel, I went on another delegation, this time to Poland, to my ancestral lands of my where my ancestors came from, my grandparents on one side and my great-grandparents on my maternal side. And I went to Poland with an incredible group of Jewish activists, artists, thinkers, in a time of witnessing the genocide in Gaza, wanting to retrace the footsteps of our ancestors and go to a site of genocide for the Jewish people and be there and learn what we might learn to confront what is happening now. And we were especially following in the footsteps of this rabbi. Some of you might have heard of him, Aaron Samuel Tamares, who was a pacifist rabbi, born in Poland in 1869, the same year as Gandhi, coincidentally, perhaps. And he lived in an area of Poland that was very multicultural. Lots of different faith traditions lived there, and it was like Eastern Poland, lots of a place of not borders, but lots of people, different groups passing through, and he loved living in this place and was very like celebrating of the diversity of this place. And when he was a little boy, he witnessed the mother who lived next door to him, a non-Jewish neighbor, hear the news that her son had died, was killed in a war. And he saw the grief of this mother sobbing and sobbing for days and weeks, mourning the loss of her son from the war. And from then, from a very young age, he understood the horror of war, the grief of war, and he vowed to always oppose it wherever he could. And as he became more religious and he became a rabbi, his thinking around pacifism and nonviolence was deeply grounded in Jewish values and Jewish theology that he was so well versed in. And we thought it was really important to go and meet him, or meet the place that he had been a rabbi in, to try and lean into some of his wisdom for these times. And I wanted to share a little bit with you in this call. And I wanted to say explicitly, he was very anti-war, and he was also around at the time when Zionism was just beginning, and I think he went to maybe the first Zionist Congress. He was kind of interested, oh, maybe this could be a good thing for the Jewish people. And he went to one meeting and he saw that this not only would be terrible for the Palestinian inhabitants of Palestine, but would also be like a stain on the Jewish soul. And this wouldn't be the redemptive thing that people were saying it could be for the Jewish people. And he was seeing nationalism rise all around him in the Russian Empire, and he was avowedly anti-nationalistic, and he saw nationalism as this source of pitting people against each other, and he saw like borders as excuses that people could go to war, and it was sort of like the cause of war for him. And I'm just going to read a little bit from his book, and I will put it in the chat at the end. And he quotes from the Talmud. He says, "A man should concern himself more that he not injure others than he not be injured. For when a man tries to keep watch that his fists not injure others, by that very act he enthrones in the world the God of truth and righteousness, and adds power to the kingdom of justice. And it is precisely this power which will defend him against injury by others. This does not happen, however, if a man is preoccupied with watching out only for himself and keeps his fist always poised to prevent others attacking him. For by such a pose, he in fact weakens the power of justice and stirs up evil." Now, Tamares was deeply inspired by Jewish texts, and especially by prophets, including Isaiah. We all know the quote from Isaiah, "Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war no more." And Rabbi Tamares was very concerned about what the practice of not studying war, what is a way that we like end war by studying this way peace. And so at that point, I also wanted to bring in a dear thinker and writer, mystic, Etty Hillesum. Some of you also may know. She was a Dutch Jewish writer and mystic living and writing during the Holocaust. And I think she also has a lot of wisdom for us, living and witnessing war. She was writing this in occupied Amsterdam in the 1940s. And through her experience of living through genocide, she wrote boldly about how necessary, how essential it is to act on a very spiritual inner level to end war that we might enact from our own beliefs and actions, and also how we might turn towards ending war from outside. And she says, "We human beings cause monstrous conditions, but precisely because we cause them, we soon learn to adapt ourselves to them. Only if we become such that we can no longer adapt ourselves, only if deep inside we rebel against every kind of evil will we be able to put a stop to it. Aeroplanes streaking down in flames still have a weird fascination for us, even aesthetically, though we know deep down that human beings are being burned alive. As long as that happens, while everything within us does not yet scream out in protest, so long will we find ways of adapting ourselves, and the horrors will continue." And I think that also rings so true in a time of social media and being able to witness so much online, and it can numb us and block us from understanding the true horrors that people are experiencing on the other end of those images. And I think Etty is asking us to pay attention to suffering, to not normalize the conditions of war. And I think this very space we're in, coming together to be in prayer, we're remembering that for each other. We're reminding each other that war is not normal. Some people, a very small group of people, have made it normal, and it is not. And to not normalize it is a part of how we study the end of war. So I am going to close with a healing prayer, and you're going to stay on mute, but I do invite you to sing along if you want to join in. And this is a healing prayer that I really see as like a healing justice prayer. But I do think that the world the people of Iran and Palestine and across the Middle East right now need healing, a just healing, a deepest healing for peace. So I'm going to sing this, and the words, they're the words that Moses spoke to God, called out to God on behalf of Miriam when she was struck down with leprosy and made to be in the wilderness. So it also feels these healing words are of solidarity and of reaching out across the divides, bringing each other in close in this time. We sing you healing, we sing you care, we sing you justice, we sing you prayer. El Narafana, oh, El Narafana.
Thank you very much, Sarah. We sing you justice. We sing you prayer. We move to our third speaker for today, our good friend, Arij Masoud. Arij is the founding director of Khayari, Women's Leadership and Economic Empowerment Organization in Bethlehem. The organization was established in 2023. Arij, of Syriac heritage from Tur Abdin, she is a second-generation Palestinian, born descendant of that history. We invite Arij to join us.
Hello, friends, and I'm happy to call all of you who are here friends. And of course, I'm very grateful, always grateful for Sabil's essential work towards justice. And I'm sharing with you today from Bethlehem, from Palestine. And I wanted to share with you like a lived experience on ground on what's happening and what's going on. And as Omar shared, that I'm the founding director of Khayari organization, which is a women empowerment organization based in Bethlehem as well. And I wanted to share with you basically our organization work with young adults, and if I want to summarize what we do, is that we hold those women with their emerging needs, whatever they experience, whatever they struggle with, we coach them in their life to figure out their identity, to find understanding on communication and understand conflict management, which is essential in our day-to-day reality and life in general. And so we create this safe space as we're guiding them and coaching them into doing this. And as not just talking about now, starting from the genocide of 2023 and before then, I wanted to share with you some of the first experiences I hear from women and what they share. When we talk about what's happening and how they're reflecting on it, first feeling they always share that there's nothing to do. Whether it's on a justice level, or whether it's on a social level, or on a networking level. And that's where we step up, of course, and teach them ways on how to do that. But that's also where I'm grateful for Sabil for holding this space, and for everyone who's here. We're more than 200 people on this call to just show that the work of justice with what's happening in Palestinian context is not just a heavy load on Palestinians. And that's essential. and I'll come back to that. But one of the experiences that I've shared when I went into a shock of what's happening in 2023, and every time I'm typically an outspoken person, I share about what's happening in Palestine. I was just, whether you want to call it going through a traumatic experience or whether it's just the loss of words. But I was able to look outwards into the community and the international community's work, who's speaking up and who is not giving up when we're struggling to find the words to do that. Another thing that women on ground, or Palestinians in general, but I'm speaking again from Khayari organization's experience with working with youth, is the experience of fragmented nation. And that's mainly due to the checkpoints, and that's mainly due to the danger that settlers are imposing on moving around between cities, villages, and different areas within the same city as well. And the increase of checkpoints since 2023 has been horrific. There's more than 1,000 checkpoint that has been popping up here and there so randomly, and flying checkpoints has been even worse. And to add to that, of course, the lack of sirens, that for Palestinians, that we don't know when a rocket is incoming. There's no protection system for us. There's no shelters for us. It's just we just go with our life with no safety, a sense of safety. To add to that, the settlers' aggression on the roads, and the restriction of movements, which makes it more isolating for people to just live in as a collective community, to have to be forced to experience this restriction of movements and this isolation in a community that is based on that. And of course, not to forget the what we hear is very hurtful towards the Palestinian identity, when there's segregation between, as if what's happening in Gaza is isolated from what's happening in the West Bank, as if we're two separate nations experiencing two different experiences, which, as if what Israel is doing as a country in the West Bank is not also an apartheid system, a genocidal system that's also wiped out refugee camps in the northern parts of the West Bank. And settlers' regimes have been forcing people outside of their homes, and much, much worse. And of course, the physical pain those women have shared with me, and how disconnected they are in understanding the effect of a genocide, an ongoing genocide in Gaza that's happening, the effect of it on physical feelings as well, and connecting feelings to physical pain, to have to navigate through that. You hear about it in psychology, you hear about it with your therapist or all of it, but to connect it in those severe circumstances. And what's sneaking up the most and needs a lot of attention is survival guilt. While what's happening in Gaza is the definition of a genocide by the book, and again, we're in one nation. What's happening to Palestinian in Gaza is happening to a Palestinian in the West Bank. We share this. We share this together. Or even as a non-Palestinian, you being here, I'm sure you've experienced that, and that's a secondhand experience, trauma, where you go through experiences because your understanding of humanity is also strong, and you carry on the heaviness of what's happening. So their survival guilt has been a huge block of living life, huge burden to try to navigate that as a Palestinian myself, but also to navigate that on ground with those women. But it's essential work that has to be done. And I'm sharing most of these experiences from those women because that's sometimes something you don't witness on news. That's not shared on social media. That's not shared on news outlets, even if you follow good news outlets that are not propaganda news. You don't hear those stories and share those experiences, but you have to have something like this of one-on-one encounters to understand or to hear those experiences. And Omar asked me to speak on what makes for peace. and navigating all those heaviness and burdens, it takes a lot to understand or to try to talk about peace. Of course, peace cannot be present or cannot be asked for when there's no justice. Peace without justice is just fake news, because someone can be at peace, but without, I can steal your bike and be at peace with it, you know? But if I don't return your bike and seek justice, we're not even. Peace is not is not real peace. So to think of justice, it needs a lot of work to find justice, to seek justice, and to force justice in Palestinian community and Palestinian reality. And to do that, I personally believe we can't work towards justice with the absence of hope. And let me elaborate more on that. As a Palestinian, living in Palestine, living in Bethlehem, I can't do any of the work I do without a glimpse of hope. If you lose hope, the minute you do, you're out of this country. You just leave. And I'm not blaming people who do. I'm not shaming people who do. Living here is difficult. It is a real experience of a apartheid system, of a genocide, and a colonial system that's just getting worse by the day. And we're witnessing it. We're witnessing that change every day. This happens. But how can we work towards hope, hope in humanity, hope in God, as we are navigating this? I want to highlight first that in Arabic there are two different words for hope. There's the word amal and the word raja. I'll type them in the chat really quick. And there's two big differences between those words, and I want just to make sure that we're speaking about the same meaning. The word amal means like a wishful thinking of what hope means, like I wish something. But raja is different. Raja is our hope that's embedded in our faith in God or our faith in humanity, is that no matter what happens on ground, we would still have hope that justice will prevail, that even through the challenges and the difficulties and the difficult and small road that we are taking and choosing to take, that this is the right way to do things. This is still the right path to create justice. And how can we make justice and bring hope from within? And this leads me to highlight that hope is not, we can't, as Palestinians, we can't take it for granted. And I bring you to, and I invite you to share this calling with me, that hope is something we have to create and make sure is present in people who are especially facing injustice on a daily basis. The minute, again, I wake up without making the effort to bringing hope into my context, I can't be in this country. I have to leave. But my hope is that through the work with those women and through the work that I'm doing, we're creating change. And I'm inviting you to always have this motivation to always seek hope, because our work towards hope will lead us, with, of course, a justice driven mentality, will lead us to peace. And only in this way we can do that. And I know the upcoming question is, what can we do? And I'm very practical. So I always like us to imagine that we are a piece of a mosaic. And it's interesting because I'm looking at this Zoom call. I've typically said that in person, but looking at this Zoom call, we sort of are building a mosaic art where we're bringing all those videos together. But if we look at a bigger picture and we try to build a mosaic of peace, where each of us is the piece that is brought into the mosaic. And each of us has a different size, has a different color, has a different placing, has a different way that adds into the piece of the mosaic. I invite you to figure out what piece are you? peace as PIECE, and to bring into the mosaic, to build it together and to shape it together. I can't guess what your skills are, what your calling is, what your added input that to create a change in peace and justice on ground in the world. But when you figure this out, you're already is part of the mosaic. And I can't wait to build this art together. And what does that look like? To be part of what can we create to bring peace into our challenging realities? Whether it's mobilizing or uplifting marginalized voices and engaging meaningful dialogue to foster understanding, like Sabeel is holding today, and invite you to do similar work. Because peace is creation, and we are called, no matter what our faith background, to always create. Without creation, there's no continuation of life. Without creation, we don't have plants to eat. We don't have food to survive. We don't have humanity. We don't have friendship. We don't have the basics of survival. So peace is not just the absence of war, but an active force that builds and nurtures. It's the act of creation, and we are called to create. As I'm inviting you to hope and to create and to always be part of the mosaic that we are creating together today, I would like to share this prayer with you that I've shared the link in the chat if you'd like to read it. And it's a prayer I go back to a lot of the times, and it might be already familiar to you. It's written in the honor of Bishop Oscar Romero, and I will pray it out loud. It's called "The Prophet of a Future Not Our Own." And as I'm reading this prayer, what I've already called for you is heavy, and I understand that. And that's what we feel, whoever's working towards hope and towards justice, it's already heavy work. And as I'm sharing this prayer with you, it's to remind ourselves that we are also human. We are also limited with our capabilities, but we can create a lot. And I think you'll understand more what I'm trying to say with reading this prayer. So I'll start. It helps now and then to step back and take the long view. The kingdom is not only beyond our efforts, it is beyond our vision. We accomplish in our lifetime only a fraction of the magnificent enterprise that is God's work. Nothing we do is complete, which is another way of saying that the kingdom always lies beyond us. No statement says all that could be said. No prayer fully expresses our faith. No confession brings perfection. No pastoral visit brings wholeness. No program accomplishes the church's mission. No set of goals and objectives include everything. And this is what we are about. We plant the seeds that one day will grow. We water the seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that will produce effect far beyond our capabilities. We cannot do everything, and there's a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something and to do it well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are workers, not master builders, ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future not our own. And I'll just leave you with that I think I will just leave you with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arish. Powerful words. Very important work that you continue to do. May God continue to bless you in your ministry. We will be closing with a final prayer from Reverend Naim Atiq. Kindly, Reverend Naim, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Assis.
Thank you. I'd like to add my thanks and gratitude to our three speakers, and thank you all, and thank you all the audience that have come to be with us. Thank you all for thank you for coming, and may God bless you and have a good weekend. But we'd like to end with a word of prayer also. Eternal God, in whose perfect kingdom no sword is drawn but the sword of righteousness, no strength known but the strength of love. So mightily spread abroad your spirit, that all peoples may live and work for justice, peace, reconciliation, and liberation. We pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, friends. Thank you for the speakers, for Reverend Naim, for the audience. May we continue together. May we continue to resist. May we continue to be one voice for justice, for peace, for all people. We wish you a wonderful weekend, and let us continue to meet and let us continue to be active. God bless you all, and happy Ramadan, and may the work continue.
Thank you all. God bless you.